Okay, so welcome to the third quarterly consortium meeting for 2022. Number one, I cannot believe it's already August and we're in the third quarter. I'm not quite sure where 2022 has gone. I still happen to be in 2020 most years. I mean, most days. So it feels like the pandemic came and it just has been one long 2020 for me. So, but here we are in August. So today's presentation is from Megan Marcus of Fuel ED, and she talks about the importance of educator wellness, right? And we've had these discussions before with, all of us, of really kind of change that paradigm change and that shift change of, instead of looking at things as all harm and where it is, like, where's the wellness in that piece, right? When we're looking at the salutogenic model, where is that wellness? And so that is my question to you this morning as we get started, is what does wellness mean to you? What does wellness mean to you? Flow, feeling satisfied with life and energized to pursue meaningful activities. And remember, click the everyone before you put your responses in so we can all see. Enjoying nature. Oh, Mary, I'm right there with you. Creating balance in daily life and work. True balance. Yeah. Feeling inner peace, a state of health that aligns within your needs. Good self-care. Feeling balanced and grounded. Feeling the best that you can. Yesterday I read something and it was sometimes you don't need to do your best, you just need to rest. And we've heard, well, sometimes the best you can do is resting, but then it's like, really, but is that the best I can do? Because that doesn't feel like my best. And just for some reason, that change, that shift of language is sometimes you don't need to do your best. You just need to rest. It was like, ooh, that feels better in my system. Feeling balanced and in harmony with my body. I love it. My body's ability to do what I need to do without shutting down or feeling weak. Wellness is having a sense of agency over my physical and mental health, giving myself grace in all areas of life. I love it. I love it. Okay, well, keep putting in the chat what wellness means to you. And we will start to move forward, because as we actually can't see through the agenda, but we do have a pretty heavy things that fill up those agenda pieces. So due to our little scheduling thing this morning, we will, whoops, look at that. We're on an automatic thing. I didn't know that. We will have the committee and partner updates first, because I promised our committee chairs that it would be first, and not all of them can stay for the full entire time. We'll have our presentation by Megan Marcus. She is the founder, as I said, of Fuel ED. Announcements, all the new things that are going on in the consortium, and then have our board update. And so that's kind of what it looks like. So committee chairs, we are going to move right into our committee and partner updates. So be prepared. We'll get you out right away. I'm going to give the Creating Trauma Sensitive Arizona Schools update, partly because you see it says Laura Wiggins and you possibly. Laura works for the Menta Group, and they have been overwhelmed with shortage in staff and double duties across the board. And last year she was having a really hard time struggling. And this year she said it's going to be even worse, trying to juggle her work schedule and the chair duties, and being present in the meetings, and being able to say that she is able to be present in the meetings every single month. And so we are looking for a co-chair for our trauma sensitive schools group. If you are interested in being that co-chair, please reach out to me. It's really quite easy. It's just helping organize what our speakers are going to be every month. I send out all of the reminder emails and all of those pieces. So it's really being present and being able to lead that meeting, and also just kind of help drive the mission and the goal of that group. Our first meeting, we took a hiatus for summer. Our first meeting is going to be Wednesday, September 7th at 4 p.m. Sarah Lindstrom Johnson from ASU will be presenting on trauma-informed parent outreach. So I will put the registration link in the chat. If you are interested in joining us, feel free to register for the schools meeting there. Bob, rural community.
Unmuting. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So our rural committee has taken on most recently putting together screenings of films, and I think that was in, gosh, I want to say May. And gosh, it just doesn't seem like that long ago. And a lot of reported success, a lot of reported expanded awareness. And I think the intention of the film screenings was to kind of galvanize some action in some local action in rural communities. So the last couple of rural committee meetings have been really kind of thinking through and brainstorming what kinds of different resources we'd like to see available for rural communities in Arizona. So we put together quite a long list of things to add to the Consortium website related to just good resources for everybody. We thought maybe we could create like a rural community office hours and broadcast it out so that we just, people could go and ask questions and learn about resources and do that kind of thing. We talked about really getting professional development opportunities from lots of different organizations out to rural communities better. And just, it's just, we got to continue to work on expanding awareness. So there's just kind of lots of stuff there. So I think that we are kind of working on beginning gathering so that we can kind of fill out a page for the rural committee, and then also just kind of keeping it like a step at a time. So that's it from the rural committee. Thanks, Angie.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about this community. We know that statistically our rural community, their incoming knowledge level of ACEs is very low in all of the studies that we've done. So we have, not succeeded in getting awareness about ACEs and the impacts of childhood trauma out into our rural communities. And I really feel this group is thinking really hard of how do we get this information into our communities, and how does that look different than our urban and suburban communities. Sabrina Walton is our new chair for our communications committee, which we're super excited is started back up, because this all ties into it, right? It is that kind of communications piece, and how do we get this information out? Sabrina?
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. I just want to say first, I'm super jealous of Bob because he was outside, and I don't think that I can be there yet because I still am in the city and it's still hot and sticky, but I cannot wait. So I should have put wellness is fall, because that's my wellness. I love fall here in the Valley. So thank you all. We've just been really kind of coming together to find out how to get the best communication out there. And the one thing that we've been really looking at is creating some type of a newsletter. And so we are in the process of kind of having a draft for that. That's our next goal, is really having a draft. Things that we're looking at having in that newsletter, we're looking at putting it out bi-monthly. We talked a little bit about quarterly, but we think that's a little bit too long. And we talked about monthly, that might be overdoing it. So we're thinking about bi-monthly. We're looking at maybe having some facts on ACEs in that newsletter, some ACEs consortium information. So it might be some stuff that we pull directly from the site just to have in that newsletter. In addition, any upcoming trainings that might be available, and then some links for actual resources. So just some hyperlinks on there that can take you directly to some resources. In addition to that, we've been working on how to get that out there. And we've been looking at some social media outlets. And so we're looking at possibly having this information directly tied into a platform called Hootsuite. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but that's something that we're also looking at, is really just kind of getting that information out there communication wise through the social media outlets, because we know that in today's world, a lot of stuff is social media related. And we are still looking at anybody that is interested in joining us. As Angie said, we're new and kind of back to the grind there. So we do meet generally the second Wednesday of every month. It's called Hootsuite, not Soup. Yes, Hootsuite. So it's HOOTSUIT, I think, Hootsuite. So like hoot, like an owl. And so it's a pretty well-known platform out there. But yes, if anybody would like to be a part of that or join, I think that Angie also has been putting out the links to that, but our next meeting is going to be September 14th at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So thank you again.
I suppose I should probably unmute. It's my first day on Zoom. Sandy with the training work group.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I am also jealous of Bob to be outside. I was outside earlier this morning, like for a half a second, and then could not handle the humidity anymore. So I came back inside. So our trainer work group has been busy. So starting out with the training of trainers, we had 25 complete our May training. And we currently have 24 folks attending training of trainers. It ends next Tuesday. Our October-November training of trainers is completely full. We do not have a waiting list at this point because we have so many registrations. We are actually over full. So that is an exciting problem to have. So we are very excited about that. When the July-August training of trainers is complete, we will have over 350 certified trainers across Arizona and scattered across a few other states. We do have folks from out of state that have come to our training of trainers. And for those of you a while back, couple months, I'm like Angie, I'm still in 2020. Sometimes I'm, back in, 1984. Sometimes, I would really like to jump forward in time just to see how all of this shakes out. But a while back, Angie sent an email for a trainer database and gauging interest in folks of wanting to do a few things. My part of that is helping with breakout facilitation and co-facilitation of the training of trainers. We had 40 of you all that said you would be interested in helping out. I just wanted to let you know that I'll begin to contact everyone over the next couple of weeks, and we'll set up a training for facilitators to get you all up and running. So thank you so much. That is an amazing turnout. And I know all of my usual suspects that have been working so hard over the last couple of years to make sure that we have enough support. So we have those smaller breakout rooms for our current trainers to be, I guess, folks in the training, to be able to have those really rich conversations. Trainer support, we had our June community of practice on June 16th, I think it was. We had, I think it was about 40 trainers, and we had an average with the evaluation, an average 4.8 said it met my needs, 4.9 said the topic was relevant, and 4.9 average score on our survey of the information was presented in a way that was beneficial. We talked about self-regulation. Some of the comments, some of the feedback from our trainers was that being in community with other trainers and being in small breakout groups was continues to be one of the most beneficial pieces of our trainings. Spending quality time with others that have the same passion, in particular for this session, was thinking about how to be responsive when we have folks that have been activated in our trainings. Our next community of practice is coming up on Tuesday, September 13th. That'll be from 10 to noon. And then finally, our trainer work group is working on updating our training curriculum. So we've broken what was traditionally Module 2 and Module 3 up into segments, and we're looking to update those, new information, get things, all updated. The end product will be module segments that trainers will have some flexibility and discretion to use these segments as bookends to complement and to expand our understanding ACEs and the impacts of childhood trauma, which used to be known as Module 1. Just a little bit of history, the feedback that we've gotten from trainers, most of them are doing Module 1 and don't often have the opportunity to do Module 2 and Module 3, but are really looking for more flexibility to be able to adapt to the audiences that they're serving and the audiences that we're training. So once all that is complete, those of you that are currently certified trainers, will start to get emails about training on the new training curriculum. I think that's it. I don't know if I left anything out, Angie.
No, there's always we always have I'm glad to see so much in the training work group, and that we are always so flexible with the new science and the new information that that is always coming out. Next, we will have Sang Hoon, and he is with our Interfaith Committee, but also our Arizona Trauma Informed Faith Community, which is our partner update next too. So, hi, Sang Hoon.
Hi, Angie. Hello, everyone. I got a little bit confused as I see Angie and Sandy. I thought, oh, I'm in the training. What module I have to do today, So I go, oh, okay. Let's see, Bob here and out there. Good. Well, nice to see you all here. And as you know, that our interface committee has been recording and uploading the podcast. So let me put on the chat. The title is A Journey on Faith Communities and Resilience and Agents of Changes. We recording the speaker, but it's Apple and Google and Amazon Music and you name it. It's everywhere. Just a type to find the podcast. Type the phrase there: the journey on faith communities and resilience and agents of change. It has been good. We recorded so far 8 recordings, and today just uploaded episode 6. Actually, Michelle is here as attendees, and we have about 5 active committee members, and Michelle has been a leader for this initiative. So yeah, shout out to her. And we're gonna have 4 more recordings, and so which gonna cover the whole year. So that's I think our highlight of our committee. And let me also okay, Angie, you did the okay. I just did that too. You did episode 5. Okay, we just uploaded episode 6, and I just put here episode 4, which is our chair Kavita was on the guest. So our goal is that it's not just talking about the face leaders coming, but actually all everybody has their faith. No faith is a part of phase 2. So we actually want to have the leaders and how their faith, their belief system intersect with their leadership in the movement. So we have a faith leaders, but also we have Kavita, and we'll have Angie very soon. So we are very excited. And if you have any questions, any input, feedback, any comment, then just email me. My email is there too, right? And also, if you are interested in participating in our committee meeting, also email to me. We originally thought that we're gonna do the every first Friday, but only 5-6 people, but we are very busy and a lot of travel. So we just do the meetings based on our agreement each month. And so we skipped the whole summer, but next Friday, August 26th, 8 a.m. Via Zoom, we're gonna have the committee meeting. So if you want to join, please join us. And if you wanna see the link, email to me. One of the good thing is that out of all the podcasts and everything, we got about 3 or 4 people very interested in joining our committee. So that was kind of cool. And so we'll see how things gonna go. That's where we are. And in terms of the AZTIFC, we do all the podcasts because we are partnering with AZTIFC organizations like Ascend Church, Pure Heart Church. They provide the facility we can do recording, and most of the people are already from their movement. So there's collaborations going on continually. Interfaith community just kind of started in a sense as the AZTFC is going to be the partnering with Consortium. So we want to see more growth in the interfaith community. And I want to make sure that this is not only for the Christians, it's for all the faith. So don't think that we ever just work with the Christians. I mean, you may not, but some people, we extend our hands to everyone. But a lot of times we only got a lot of responses from Christian ministries. So if you, I already have some imam and, Hindu priest and Buddhist monk and organizations, but they are still kind of check it out, but they not persistent so far. So I'm telling you that we are very wide open, and that's our intention here in this consortium, to invite all the faith leaders and to work on this committee. As you know, Angie is that community manager in the PACES Connection for Arizona. But I am also co-manager of the PACESconnection.com, the faith community. So we actually, our Arizona model is kind of expanding into our national model, is working with national leaders. So actually there are a lot of great things going on. At the same time, that means they really got to know, oh, there's an Arizona ACES Consortium, so it's been really kind of fun journey. Sorry, I took a long time, but thank you.
Never be sorry. We like hearing your updates, and the podcasts have been amazing that have been put out. So there's multiple links in there. I did, as my last chat, put in just the link that goes directly to that page where you can see all of them. Hillary with our Southern Arizona Trauma Informed Network.
Hey, everybody. I can't see my picture. Did it pop up?
It did.
Okay, perfect. Good morning. So Satin has been working on our trainings throughout the year, and we're continuing to be picked up across the state for sure, but also nationally and internationally. And we actually found out that one of the provinces in Canada is actually putting out our training calendar in their monthly newsletter. So we're connecting people to the ideas around trauma-informed care and resiliency and health and wellness. And that's really exciting for us. We are working on our training calendar for next year already, with the idea that we're going to have sort of 2 tracks. One is more around the trauma 101, the basic tenets of trauma. And then the number 2 track would be the more in-depth, kind of deeper dive into the trauma and the different populations or trauma and different diagnoses. So really excited about the way that's going. And then we have created for a long time, we've had a board, a chair, a vice president, secretary, treasurer, all those positions. And as we've gone into this work and feeling like, wow, there's so much more work to be done. In order to do that, we need to generate some income so that we can do something more than just free trainings. We're really taking a look at our structure, and maybe re-electing our board to those people who can drive the organization forward. We're not a business, and we're uncomfortable with the word business, but driving our organization forward towards kind of the next step and whatever that looks like. So that's been really exciting work. And we're just really open to all the potential and possibilities of what Southern Arizona holds, and how many people still need to get the message. I went to the Child Abuse Prevention Conference last month, and I walked away feeling like, oh my gosh, this trauma-informed care work is so saturated, right? All of the workshops that I went to felt like they had some sort of trauma-informed care component, which is really awesome. But it also made me question, like, are we moving forward in the right time, in the right space? And so I took that like angst back to our group and shared that in a really like kind of transparent moment. And they reminded me that yes, in child welfare and behavioral health, and maybe even in education, there's some level of saturation that's happening, but that's such a small little niche field, really. And if we look outside of ourselves, if we look outside and look at businesses and continue to look at law enforcement and so many other sectors, that the work still needs to go forwards. And so that was sort of like a good mission moment for me. I came full circle from the moment of panic to, hey, we've still got work to do, really, really valuable, important work to do. So we will push out our training dates to you guys as soon as we have them, and continue to keep you updated on our movement forwards.
Thank you, Hillary. And I put their Facebook page link in the chat, because they put all of their information on that Facebook page too, for anyone who would like to follow along with what they do. And Hillary, I echo that sentiment, right? It can feel to us, and I think this is a trap we've all fallen into. It can feel to us that our network, right, knows so much about ACEs and so much about trauma-informed care, and this is how it is. I can tell you, I promise you, step outside of your network that you're in right now, and the information has not gotten past us as much, right? It is starting to, and it really is, it's starting to, but there's a lot of work to still be done, even in that kind of awareness piece. So I kind of feel like we're all stuck in that kind of strange place where we still need to do awareness, but we need to do next steps at the same time for those. So it's like the kind of plethora of college courses that you could get from 101 all the way to graduate studies, right?
Yeah. And that's really why we have these 2 tracks, right? Is the 101, we're still delivering those basic tenets, that initial message, that aha moment that people need to have. But then I think there's a lot of like hunger for, okay, now what do I do with it? Or how does this apply to my life? Or how can I help others? And so that's sort of where our second track is going.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Hillary. Thank
You're welcome.
you.
Thanks so much.
All right, now I'm super excited. We get to have our presenter today, Megan Marcus, who's the founder of Fuel ED. And I am not a fan of listening to my bio. And so I assume that everyone else is not a fan either. So we will let her introduce herself. I will stop sharing so she can share her presentation.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Megan Marcus, and I'm the founder and partner at Fuel Ed. It's actually how it's pronounced. We are an organization all about fueling schools with the power of relationships. So I'm going to present to you today a little bit about our work and really the framework behind it. So I'll just take a moment to just get my screen share up. So just give me just one moment. Oh, it says disabled participant screen sharing. I think I'm supposed to be a panelist, so maybe you can just give me that power to share my screen.
I did. I think Zoom has changed to like all of the automatic things. I have to go in and
Oh, there we go.
yeah.
All right, I'm using Prezi. Can you all see my screen in presentation mode?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Not in presentation mode. We see it with your
Is that
tabs
better?
up top. There you go.
All right, thank you so much. So before I kind of jump into myself and our work, I'd love to just almost like learn a little bit about you all, because I know you're a big group of diverse individuals who really care about trauma and are working so hard to create more healing-centered spaces. So would love for you to just kind of chat in either your name and where you're coming from, as well as like what role or industry, what kind of angle you're playing, so I can kind of get a sense of who's in the room. And then we'll just jump into a little exercise, a little warm-up exercise that I'd love you to think about in the work that you do in supporting more trauma-informed spaces, whether that's as a parent or a professional, on a personal, or in your everyday work. Think about the trauma-informed education and schools, and think about the role of an educator. So I'm going to read a statement, and if you think it sort of applies to teachers and schools, if you are a teacher yourself or from what you've seen in the school system, go ahead and chat that into the chat box with like a thumb, or we can do thumbs up. And the course of a life or day in the life of an educator, do you think that they ever have to resolve student conflicts, coach kids on personal problems? In addition to math or science, they try to develop kids' self-esteem, love of learning, passions, interests, motivation, interpersonal skills. Ever have to reassure an upset parent, get along with other teachers? Ever have to communicate with school principals, or even on a daily basis in the classroom feel anxiety, doubt, happiness, frustration, sadness, fear, or excitement? What this exercise shows us, and what we all know so well, is that teaching, learning, and leading in schools is a human endeavor, an interpersonal endeavor, and it's built on relationships. Under ordinary circumstances, schools are places where students and families are held by an invisible web of support. And the relationships that make up the ecosystem of the school are what really can provide great safety. But as we know, all of that changed in March 2020 when schools, as we know them, changed overnight. And not only is the role of an educator, which was always so interpersonally and emotionally demanding, became exponentially more so. The trauma that students and educators have had to cope with has become exponentially more present. And the one positive thing from this is that at least this reality of teaching and learning being such a core part of an educator's work has come to the forefront, the relational aspect of it, and emotional aspect of it. And so all of that really was why Fuel Ed was founded, the power and potential of the educator to build relationships that provide emotional safety and can heal trauma. Unfortunately, despite the importance of an educator's relational world, it's a missing piece in educator preparation. And really, I kind of came to this awareness when I was working with Dr. Lou Cozolino on his book, The Social Neuroscience of Education. Some of you might be familiar with the Dr. Cozolino or Dan Siegel and folks in that world of interpersonal neurobiology. But I was working with Dr. Cozolino on his book and realized the power and potential of the teacher-student relationship and how teachers could really transform lives and mitigate trauma through the relationships they build. But I was shocked when I found that despite the importance of relationships to an educator's job, it truly, truly is missing from educator preparation and support. And that's really such a huge disservice to adults and to kids. And it's why FELED was born, with a mission to really fill this gap in educator preparation. Our mission is to develop emotionally intelligent educators who then can go on and build relationship-driven schools. That's a little bit about me and how I started FuelEd. We provide training to educators. We provided training to educators all about developing their social emotional competencies, relationship skills, self-awareness, and their ability to be trauma informed. And I'll share a little bit through this presentation about how we do that. And I'll share it a little bit through story and a little bit through science. And looking forward to just the opportunity to share more about our work with you. To kick us off today, I want to tell you a story of an educator named Destiny. Like many educators do, Destiny became a teacher so she could inspire and support students facing adversity. As a teacher, she used tools that schools commonly use to handle student behavior. A student acts out, she called them out. A student picks a fight, she'd write them up. Student throws a chair, she'd suspend them. Let's just say a lot of Destiny's students were getting suspended. Now let's rewind to Destiny's early life. Destiny grew up impoverished and homeless, with a mother who was addicted to drugs and a father who was incarcerated. When she was 12 years old, Destiny's mom lost her rights to her kids, and Destiny was put up for adoption. That very same year, her mother died from an overdose of cocaine. And 6 months later, her stepfather was murdered. Like many of the students in her school, when she was an educator, when Destiny was growing up, Destiny's brother was also constantly suspended. He'd throw chairs, curse out students. It was really the only way he knew how to deal with all that pain. Suspended enough times, he got expelled. Once expelled, kids are statistically more likely to drop out, and once drop out, they're 8 times more likely to go to prison. Destiny's brother's now been in and out of jail for the last 15 years, with 3 kids at home who are now experiencing the very same trauma that Destiny and her brother experienced as children. Destiny became a teacher to change lives. But what was happening is the very way she was relating to her students was actually more likely to ensure that their lives and the lives of their future children stayed exactly the same. So we're all in this room because we care about people and we care about children, and hopefully see the way that education and other elements of our society can be an avenue to support children and build a better world. But even as a group of people deeply invested in these goals, what education can do for our children? Have you ever been in the shoes of Destiny, inadvertently promoting the exact opposite outcomes in students or children than we intend to? And if so, why? And what can we do about it? To explore these questions, I want to begin by asking ourselves, what are the outcomes that we want to see in students, in children? Let's go ahead and take one moment. I'd love to make this as interactive as I can, with a Zoom webinar. Take a moment to think about it and start entering in the chat. At the end of the day, if we're successful in this coalition, in this community, and bringing trauma-informed care and education to the whole world, what would our students look like at the end of the day? Go ahead and type in your responses. What might be some of those outcomes? How would they act, think, feel? What would be some qualities or characteristics that you'd see?
I'd like to also to stretch everyone here too, who's not directly in education, because I really do believe that we are all educators, right? Like if we're a direct service provider and we have a client, you know, we all know, we've had this discussion before, we're in this industry, right? We're committed to bringing forward trauma-informed care because of our own stories. Otherwise we wouldn't. We don't get paid millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? We typically work in understaffed organizations because but we're here because we have a passion and a drive to make this world a better place. And so as you're working, right, in a direct service provider, you still are educating every day. And so what are some of the things that we want to see even outside of the students, but with the other adults that you work with?
Beautiful. Thank you for that bridge. I appreciate that. So I see some wonderful responses in the chat. I'll call just a few of them out. Regulation was up there. I see that they feel loved, a sense of kind of self-esteem, of self-empowerment, of feeling valued. I see that they feel worthy as a person, right? Confidence, that they're open. You know, these are wonderful, wonderful examples, and we can go on and on. Being able to articulate and communicate, wonderful. Thank you so much. So what I want to point out to you all, and all of what you just described, the outcomes we want to see in students, and is what decades of research have shown to be the exact same outcomes in students or adults with something known as secure attachment, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. But for those of you who may not have as much familiarity, secure attachment is associated with higher grades and standardized test scores, more focused attention and participation, greater willingness to take on challenges and explore, more self-confidence, resilience, perseverance, ability to cope with new situations, ability to work independently, to cope with criticism and stress. The list goes on, and it really mirrors just what you all said in the chat about what we want at the end of the day if we're successful, what we want to see. I'd say this is probably not just like what we see in a student, but a productive, fully developed, healthy, mature, contributing member of society too, right? So now that we've sort of defined our ultimate goal for the rest of our time, we're going to be exploring how to get there and why enhancing relationships in schools is not merely an add-on, but fundamental to developing more students that look just like this. At the same time, I'm going to be showing you how FuelEd's framework, which includes the science, the skills, and the self-awareness of relationships, are all necessary components and all play into this path. So let's start with the science of relationships. For the past several hundreds of thousands of years, we humans have lived in small communities where relationships ensured our survival. For the group, strong relationships gave us the advantage of better protection, more resources like food and water, and better opportunities for mating and caretaking. Relationships didn't just help us make stronger groups, but individuals also we're completely reliant on relationships for our survival. If we had someone caring for our daily needs, we'd survive. In other words, and while abandonment would equal certain death. Regardless of whether our physical environments looked like this, or this, or this, the truth of the matter is we stayed alive, and we stay alive and thrive based on what happens here and here and here. Relationships were, are, and always will be our natural habitat. Because of the survival value of relationships kept us alive, the brain became wired to connect. And relationships became the stage where all learning and development happens for us as humans. It's why we became social creatures who are wired to connect. In fact, compared to other primates, we as humans are born highly dependent on relationships for our survival and growth, with 70%, a whopping 70% of our brain being built after birth. And so you might be wondering what's developed and what's not. Well, even before birth at 8 months of gestation, the part of the brain responsible for emotional reactions, fear, and that kind of gut reaction, anger, Our amygdalas are fully developed. And what's not developed, conveniently, are those neural circuitries that help us downregulate and control those emotions in our prefrontal cortex, which, as so many of you know, this is all just familiar. A lot of you very familiar with the science and this knowledge, you apply it every day. There's the prefrontal cortex, which takes years to develop, decades. And so this means by the time we're born, we're able to be completely and utterly terrified with absolutely no capacity or ability to calm or control our own fear. Is this a cruel trick of nature? How on earth does the brain develop the ability to regulate, to control our emotions, our behavior, our reactions? The answer, I'm sure no surprise to any of you, is relationships. But it's not just any relationships. It's relationships that are consistent, responsive, and validating, also known as secure attachments. So let's kind of break down what happens when there is a secure attachment present for a child. These are relationships that make us feel safe, soothed, secure, and seen. A nice kind of alliteration that I think Dan Siegel put out there. These relationships literally, and so let's look at the impact, the 4 impacts that I want to kind of summarize. These relationships build our brain's ability to regulate and soothe our emotions. It's those repeated interactions, thousands and thousands of interactions where an infant or child gets upset, a caregiver steps in, helps them re-regulate. The child can return to a baseline of calm, and that actually is building our brain's ability to do it ourselves. When our caregivers help us go from dysregulation to regulation, dysregulation to regulation, dysregulation to regulation over and over and over again, that essential practice is actually what our neural architecture gets modeled off of. In this way, our caregivers are somewhat serving as this external brain that becomes a model for our own brain functioning. In other words, if our parents are able to effectively regulate their own emotions and then help us regulate ours, then we develop our own abilities to do it ourselves later in life. This is just one way that our early relationships shape brain development. Secondly, secure relationships build our expectations of the world. When children experience their caregivers as a secure base from which to explore the world, return to when they feel afraid, they come to believe the world is a safe place for exploring and discovering. Thirdly, secure relationships create a template for what to expect of subsequent relationships. Because of repeated interactions where a child's needs and feelings are understood, are seen, are tended to and responded to, the child learns, hey, I must be valuable, worth something. And they can come to expect that relationships in the world are a source of security and love. And of course, as I just kind of blended with that last point, builds our sense of self-worth. Treated consistently with sensitivity, love, and care signals to us that we are valuable and worthy of love and belonging. Hopefully you're starting to put together some of the outcomes that we all want so badly in the chat with how they're built up through these early interactions and experiences in relationship. But what if a child doesn't have a secure relationship early in life? Well, for one, if the child didn't have someone really there to help co-regulate, help them regulate their own emotions, instead of an expectation of safety, the child will receive the message that the world is unpredictable and dangerous. Do not explore, do not discover, do not take chances, do not learn. The child also learns that relationships are negative, unsafe, and trustworthy, and comes to expect that from all subsequent relationships. And finally, without a secure attachment, the child can come to believe that they are inherently defective and unworthy of love and belonging. I'll just give you a moment to take that in. Now I'm going to start to connect this idea of attachment to the concept of trauma. And I know you all are very familiar with the science of trauma and toxic stress, so I'm not going to go deep there, but just a quick, perhaps, review and connection. We all know that, short experiences of high stress can be well handled. Our brain and body, oh no, let me get ahead. Our brain and body are well designed to handle short experiences of stress, right? We go quickly into fight or flight mode. We start allocating resources. Oops. Technical issues. Sorry. Oh goodness. Let me just take a quick pause and stop sharing screen. I'm sorry for this and realize trying to figure out what's going on here.
How it's technology. It works when it wants to.
I know it's so
That's all there is to it. But it's a great reminder, great place for the reminder that adults are just children who've turned 18, right? That if we as adults have not had interventions and have not had mitigations and been able to, heal from the trauma that we have experienced as children, we are just repeating those patterns. And so all of this information is, well, I love it. I love the attachment theories, and because it explains so much. But we're able to see that in the adults that we work with also. One of the questions for you, Megan, that just came through in the chat too, is what resource on secure attachment research should be shared? So once your technology figures out.
I will definitely sort of respond to that while I'm just scurrying around here, and apologies.
It is okay.
I think I figured it out. I'm going to share my screen again in a moment, but I can definitely share. I would say, Dan Siegel as an author has done a wonderful job conveying attachment theory and the science, the neurobiology behind it in a beautiful way. So any work by his, Parenting from the Inside Out is one of my favorite books that really goes into different attachment styles and talks about that inner work of the parent. And then of course, Dr. Lou Cozolino and any one of his books are really great in that blend of interpersonal neurobiology with attachment and trauma. So, and we have plenty of resources on our website too. So lots of blogs and easy to digest info there. Okay, let me see if I can get this going again. Do you see my slides?
Yep, it's in presentation
I
mode.
think I can skip ahead in a little bit more efficient way. Thank you for bearing with me. Here we go. Okay, so while short experiences of high stress can be well handled, we go into fight or flight mode quickly and we get all our resources, biological resources, kind of going towards attacking that stressor. The same is not the case with repetitive or prolonged experiences of stress, which, as we know, have a significant wear and tear effect on the body and brain. Moreover, when the stress comes from inside the home, from the very relationships that's meant to serve as a buffer to stress and threat, when that becomes the source of stress and threat, the impact of this can be profound. Very much importantly for educators to note, because our education, systems and climate and pedagogy is so focused on behavior and behavior management. We need educators to understand that toxic stress not only impairs brains, it manifests in behaviors. This study by Dr. Bruce Perry looks at reactivity to stressful events. A normal reaction to increasing stress is to move steadily along this path from calm to terror. A reaction that's considered more resilient, which you see the bottom line there, is one where the individual stays in a calm state for longer despite increasing levels of stress. What the last line, the vulnerable line, represents is the ways in which children with traumatic backgrounds, those classified as vulnerable, actually experience terror in response to what otherwise would be considered a normal stressor. This really shows us the ways in which states become traits. In other words, what should be a short-term state becomes actually a habitual way of responding, and the ways in which students may very well be showing up to class. Without the experience of safety, the brain becomes more reactive, more focused on survival, and less focused on exploration and growth, play and learning. In very simple terms, if you feel safe and loved, your brain becomes specialized in exploration, play, and cooperation. On the flip side, if you are frightened and unwanted, it specializes in managing feelings of fear and abandonment. So what does this mean for educators or anyone working with children? Well, you have the tale of two students, one who enters the classroom or maybe your office or your organization with a secure attachment. And what do they look like? Well, they're ready to learn, explore, connect with peers, seek contact with the teacher when in need, persevere through difficult tasks. They're better able to regulate and talk about their emotions and misbehavior. And then there's another that comes to class, afraid to explore the environment, with a shorter attention span, afraid to seek out the teacher for help or reassurance, with a poor performance on cognitive tasks, greater anxiety, greater aggression. It's obvious from these two descriptions which will be the natural student in our current educational environment and who has the better odds of succeeding in school and life. Now, the words of Dr. Lou Cozolino become all the more clear. Those who are nurtured best survive best. So what do we do at Fuel Ed as it relates to this content, this knowledge? By providing this very knowledge, this very content to educators and schools across the country, the knowledge of the science of relationships. What we see happening is teachers, principals, district leaders begin to look at students through a different lens, to see differently, and better understand that oftentimes the difficult behaviors that you see in schools may be a clue to a student's relationship history, a trauma response. With this new understanding, educators are better able to avoid the trap of either personalizing a student's behavior, saying, what's wrong with me? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. I'm so tired all the time. I'm so exhausted. This is too difficult. I can't handle these students. Maybe I need to leave the profession. And also avoid the trap of saying, what's wrong with you? These students can't get in line. I'm so angry at them. I'm so judgmental towards them. And instead take a new path of being better able to conceptualize students in the context of their personal history and relationship needs. Let's return momentarily to Destiny's story. The behavior management tools that she was trained in and the frame she was using to see students wasn't allowing her to see beneath the iceberg. It was only after Destiny learned about trauma, attachment, and the impact these powerful experiences have on the brain through her experience with Fuel Ed that she began to see students' challenging behavior as an invitation for her to consider, what is this student going through? What are they needing? Let's figure out what's triggering me, triggering the student, and how I can better meet this need. Her students' behavior were no longer seen as roadblocks or barriers to success as a teacher, but rather important clues that could help her better respond to and serve her students. But is knowing the science of relationships really enough? After all, about 50% of students come to school with insecure attachments. And if you work with students from vulnerable populations like Destiny did, this figure jumps to a staggering 2/3. So at this point, you might be wondering, are these kids doomed? Of course, you're not wondering that, you know they're not. Are teachers doomed? Is the fate of a classroom set before an educator even enters the classroom? Here's the exciting part. Just as our brain is shaped by relationships early in life, the latest research in interpersonal neurobiology is showing us that it continues to be shaped by relationships throughout the lifespan. Subsequent secure relationships alter our development, literally change brains, and have the power to heal trauma. And that's the power that every single educator has, because these relationships come in many shapes and forms. Sometimes it's a parent, often it's a spouse, maybe it's a friend, a therapist, a mentor, but very often it's a teacher. Just like trauma is experienced through our senses, safety is also experienced through our senses. And so warm eye contact, soothing voice, and healthy touch from a protector can calm a frightened or stressed person and bring the body out of a stress response and into the calm zone. Relationships that educators hold with students have the power to create trauma, but they also have the power to heal trauma. And so we at Fuel Ed like to imagine a world where an educator's job is to provide a model for what a secure relationship can be. At this point, you might be wondering, well, then what in the world does it take to build a secure relationship? What does a secure attachment relationship look like? This is where we come to the skills portion of Fuel Ed's framework. Sorry, that was supposed to be pulled up earlier. That was sort of the point I just made. What does it take to build a secure attachment? And this is where it comes to the skills portion of Fuel Ed's framework. There are a whole variety, a whole host of relationship skills that contribute to one's ability to build secure attachments. And that's what we're going to dive into next. So, secure attachments are built when educators, caregivers, or parents are aware of and responsive to others' emotions, needs, and perspective. When we communicate with empathy and compassionate understanding, when we express our emotions in healthy, direct, and appropriate ways, when we demonstrate unconditional acceptance of others, respect others' autonomy, and are consistent in our way of relating. So I want to just leave that up for a moment for you to take it in. There's also a variety of relationship skills or behaviors that contribute to building insecure attachment in others. And let's take a look at what those look like. Educators, parents, caregivers, or other providers like therapists build insecure attachments with others when they shame others, when they don't meet their expectations, model unhealthy ways of dealing with emotions, belittle or ignore others' needs and emotions, undermine or dictate others' actions, project their own feelings onto others, and are inconsistent, unpredictable, confusing, or overwhelming to others. So what Fuel Ed is trying to do, in addition to not only increasing the knowledge base and awareness of the science of trauma and attachment, but we're actually trying to move educators away from the relationship behaviors that build insecure attachments, those you see here, and towards the relationship behaviors that build secure attachments. Let's explore just for one moment one of the skills needed to build secure attachment: empathy, one of the most powerful. What is empathy? It is understanding, we define it as understanding the emotional state of another person. People think about it as putting yourself in other people's shoes, seeing through another's eyes, really understanding. In one word, I think it's about understanding. What we believe is the real power, sort of the holy grail of empathy. The most potent thing about empathy is when we communicate our understanding to make another person feel heard. What does this look like? Imagine a child comes to an educator crying about a fight on the playground, and they're able to say, I can see you're really upset about this. Or even, let's say they're angry with another teacher. You could say, this is making you really frustrated. When educators, or we, respond to another's distress with empathic understanding, utilizing what we call mirroring statements that reflect others' needs, feelings, thoughts, or problems, this in turn develops the student's self-awareness of their own needs. All of a sudden, there's someone they see themselves in the mirror. That's why it's called mirroring. They can actually see, hey, I am feeling angry. I am feeling frustrated. And now have the emotional vocabulary to name what I feel, need, and think. What else does it do? It helps the student self-soothe, self-regulate, self-manage. We've all experienced what it feels like when we're understood. We can breathe easier, right? Our problems feel lighter. It might not have gone away, but all of a sudden it feels like a little bit less of a burden. On a brain level, when someone names our feelings, we actually move from operating from the right hemisphere, where there's all the strong emotions, to the left hemisphere, where language and logic is processed. So it allows us to make sense of our experiences, which makes them a lot less overwhelming. What else does it do? This, oops, oh goodness. No, don't do this to me. Sorry, guys. Let me get there. Because he's not my friend today. All right. That moment of empathic understanding over time, delivered in enough times, enables responsible decision-making, problem solving. Because empathy is calming, now we're in a better state of mind to understand our own problems and solve them for ourselves. Oh goodness, not again. I'm so sorry. Don't know why that keeps happening. And last but not least, empathy can even grow others' social awareness, because understanding our own selves is the foundation for understanding others. So here's the deal. The competencies that you see emerging here may look a lot to you like the competencies depicted in the multitude of frameworks for social emotional learning out there, right? But what this example demonstrates and what these frameworks are missing is this fact that creating an education system capable of developing such competencies in students is not as simple as equipping educators with a curriculum on grit or a scope and sequence on self-control, namely because social and emotional competencies are not learned like other cognitive skills. So no amount of flashcards, lesson plans, or pop quizzes will go nearly as far as an educator's warmth, empathic understanding, acceptance, honest communication. Unlike reading, writing, and arithmetic, social and emotional development occurs as a developmental process in early childhood and continues into adolescence and adulthood through the experience of secure relationships. Like lock and key, an educator's emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills are what create moments of nurturance and care that catalyze a cascade of social and emotional learning for students. This is exactly what happened with Destiny. Once she started practicing the relationship skills of secure attachment, before Destiny's colleagues experienced, let me give you a snapshot of before and after. Before, Destiny's colleagues experienced her as very reactive. We all know someone like that, right? She was hot-headed, emotional, defensive. But with her new skills that she learned through the FUEL-Ed training, she began to slowly but surely begin to take others' perspective and assume the best in others. She was more open, more curious, more honest, more vulnerable, more willing to take feedback. Not only did her relationships on the team improve over time, she created more and more space for empathic relationships with her students, and trust was built. They began to experience her as a safe, non-judgmental person, and therefore began to open up more, sharing more about themselves and their struggles, which only helped her be more effective as a teacher and as a secure attachment figure, because she learned more about them. She was better able to meet their needs, social, emotional, and academic. So imagine what if educators were equipped with all the skills and support they needed to provide a model for what a secure relationship can be. Just imagine the power of this. With secure attachments at the center of our schools and classrooms, we have the power to stimulate neuroplastic processes that literally reshape brains, promote learning, mitigate and heal the effects of trauma, and develop happy, healthy, whole people. But there's one more piece to this equation. What else does it take to be a secure attachment figure? Well, we have to keep in mind that teachers, like students, are not blank slates. Like students, teachers too have a history of relationships. They have their own attachment styles, their own experiences with trauma, their own personal histories, all of which have shaped their brain, their thoughts, their feelings, and their behavior in relationships with others. In a groundbreaking study, researchers actually interviewed expecting first-time parents. They wanted to assess their attachment styles. So imagine me, I'm not pregnant right now, but imagine I'm pregnant and I'm going to have my baby, baby's still, not earth side. And I go to the lab and they start asking me questions about my history, my background. And from those questions, from that interview process, they can identify my attachment style, right? Over 1 year later, when the baby was 1, right? The researchers brought those babies and parents back. But this time they were looking at the child's attachment style. And researchers wanted to know, is there any relationship at all? Oh, there is. Researchers interviewed first-time parents. Over 1 year later, they assessed the child's attachment style. And they wanted to know, is there any relationship at all between these two things, right? The parent's attachment style and the child's attachment style. And amazingly, the study found a 75% correlation between the child's attachment style and the parent's attachment style, which was measured over a year before the child was born, before the child was even a twinkle in the parent's eye. they could have predicted that child's attachment style. In other words, the best predictor of whether or not we as adults in this, as going through this world, building relationships in our workplace and our personal lives with children and other professionals, the best predictor of whether we will build secure or insecure attachments is our own attachment history. So what does this mean for educators? Well, it means that relationships are really somewhat of a double-edged sword. On one hand, a secure educator, an educator who they themselves experience secure attachments, is more likely to build secure relationships that repair a student's problematic view of relationships and enhance neuroplasticity in learning. But on the flip side, an insecure educator, an educator who has an insecure attachment style and experiences with insecure relationships or trauma, is more likely to build insecure relationships that affirm a student or staff's problematic view of relationships and shut down learning. Why is that? Well, here I'm going to begin to kind of weave a few more strands between these pieces of trauma and attachment. After trauma, as you all likely know, the brain becomes very interested in protecting itself. And so you begin to see things as more threatening. So if you were bitten by a snake, for example, in the future, your brain would perceive anything snake-like as a snake, just in case. So you're walking in the yard and you see a hose and your brain quickly says, snake, get out of the way. Technically, your brain's wrong, and yet your reaction makes a lot of sense in light of your experiences and your past trauma. The brain's essentially reliving a story of that trauma, along with all of the same feelings of fear or powerlessness, anytime it's reminded of the traumatic experience. And these reminders can be in the form of anything at all: people, places, times of day, sounds, sensations, and you're right back there in the trauma. The more reactive brain is a more protective brain, indeed. But the problem is that higher reactivity and less accurate threat perception make everyday life and relationships quite challenging, because you may frequently misread emotional cues and situations, leading you to react more strongly than you need to. We at Fuel Ed call this being triggered, and it's the result of unprocessed trauma. Whether that trauma was when you were 5 years old or in the last, 12 months during this pandemic. In your day-to-day work and educators' day-to-day work, you might notice that, and they might notice there's some experiences that they're particularly sensitive to, things that push your buttons, get under your skin, strike a nerve, rile you up. And it's these moments of being triggered that may be closely tied to your experiences during early attachment relationships. Because that's the thing about attachment styles. They often operate as a subconscious force that can leave us reliving rather than living our lives, recreating in one form or another feelings from our earliest social relationships in our current lives. And I'm really sorry, I'm not able to respond or see the chat while I'm talking. I do see messages coming in, and I hope to be able to turn to that in a moment so we can have some discussion. And it can play out in a lot of different ways. The relationship patterns that keep recurring, causing a resurgence of old feelings of shame, anger, fear, rejection, or abandonment that could bubble up in the most seemingly innocuous situations. Our body keeps a record of those experiences. And the more disproportionate those reactions was when those deep memories are activated, they're flagged as potential hazards, and we're triggered to become reactive to keep us safe. The more disproportionate our emotional reactions are, the more likely they may belong to unfinished business from our early attachment relationships. And not only are we kind of sharing this with you now, but this is the type of content that we share with educators to raise their awareness of this for themselves in their own lives. And this is really the case for all humans, truly, right? It's not just educators, but the thing is, it's just less of a job hazard for a banker, a grocery store clerk, an accountant, a journalist, than maybe it is for a teacher, whose effectiveness is founded in their ability to build healthy relationships. But if we are to build secure attachments with others, it seems we must be securely attached. What if we never had those secure attachments? Can we change our attachment style as adults? And this is where I'm here to bring some more hopeful science that, yes, absolutely, we can change our own attachment style, even though we may have had insecure or even traumatic experiences in childhood. It is possible to change or earn our own secure attachment style. And researchers have actually created a term for this. Folks who had early insecure relationships or experienced trauma that created this way of being, but later in life developed, grew, and healed into more of a secure attachment style. And the key differences between these two, while the commonality is these childhood experiences with insecure attachment figures or environments or other the ACEs, right? It's not just the insecure relationships, but certainly the other kinds of acute or chronic trauma. That's really what's in common is these insecure relationship attachment figures or environments. But what sets them apart then? Well, what science has shown us is that adults with secure attachment have at some point in their life had the experience of a subsequent secure relationship. And they also have had opportunities and experiences where they've clearly reflected on their childhood, processed through that trauma, and developed that self-understanding. Researchers have given a name to this kind of processing, and the outcome of that processing is a coherent narrative. Those who have earned secure attachment style have indicators in the way they tell their story of their childhood that they've made sense of it, right? It's coherent in the way that they can talk about their childhood in a very honest and vulnerable, truthful way. That really makes sense. That is really actually an indicator of the brain coherence that's developed through that processing that often happens in relationships. So this really brings us to the final part of Hewlett's framework. It's not enough to have the science, to know the knowledge. It's not even enough to know the skills and have the behaviors in relationships. But educators and all of us working to create a more healing world need to do our own self-work and do our own unpacking of our own stories if we truly want to be the type of people who build relationships that can heal and create environments and systems that are also equally healing. And so really that's what we do in our work. We apply directly to education. We expose educators to the science, skills, and self-awareness of relationships, helping educators get more in touch with their own relationship histories, their attachment styles, understanding of how it plays out today when they're triggered, and really trying to move out of those habitual patterns. And that's really the journey that Destiny took during her experience with Hewlett. Oh, there's no picture of Destiny there. I thought there was going to be. We can look at this instead. Throughout the year with Hewlett, because we not only provided them with training, but an entire year of free counseling support to all the educators that we worked with. Person-centered counseling was our orientation, so that all of our educators could not only have safe space for processing, but experience a subsequent secure relationship through that therapeutic process. And so throughout that year, Destiny engaged in counseling, personal counseling, to explore her story, her triggers, her trauma for the first time in her adult life. She started to heal and then grow a new reflective capacity. Whenever her buttons were pushed, she could notice that a burning sensation inside. Instead of reacting, she paused. She would ask herself, what's going on with me? What's going on with me? If I'm this upset with a student, what is really under the surface here? She could step away and breathe if she needed to. She was better able to kind of clear the clouds and listen to others instead of being preoccupied with her own emotions, to be there for them in a way that she had never been able to be there for them before. She started doing this not only with her students, but with adults in the school too. In so many words, throughout her experience with Hewlett, Destiny grew as a person, a whole educator. And as a result, growth blossomed all around her. By the end of the year, her team was operating in a way she never experienced before on a team. Destiny students loved being with them, and it showed. They didn't miss a day of school the entire year. Suspensions went way down. Test scores, which were previously dead last in the district, went way, suspensions, test scores, which were previously dead last in the district, shot up to the highest in the state for those 5th grade students. So what I want to kind of leave you with is this idea that Destiny not only grew her emotional intelligence and her relationship skills through her experience with Hewlett, now Destiny is growing the field. It's been several years since Destiny experienced Hewlett today, And today Destiny's founding her own school called the Anchor School, a school that will train teachers to unpack their own identities, teach them the necessary relationship skills to change lives, a school that will prioritize emotionally safe classrooms and social emotional learning, healing from trauma, not only for students, but for the adults as well. And we believe it really is up to each and every one of us to take that journey to growing our emotional intelligence, to find the spaces for relationships and reflection where we can heal and where we can flourish. It's up to each of us to make that change on the ground in our schools and our districts and communities. And in this moment, to prioritize relationships as the beating heart of our education system. So I want to kind of just share just a few next steps and calls to action. I know it is a diverse group, so hopefully you find something in here for you. For educators, teachers, flock, get social support, learn together, rely on each other. There's a big push for self-care in education right now. And what Fuel Ed really advocates is that there is no such thing as self-care, right? We take care of one another, and that's how we learn to take care of ourselves. And so build a relationships, build a community for yourself through, see what you can do to develop practices of collective care. Engage in personal counseling, explore your own triggers, your own attachment style, and how it plays out in your classroom, in your relationships. And consider those challenging students. What is their history? What spaces, additional spaces can you provide to help them feel seen, safe, and soothed in relationship with you? And of course, connect with the Fuel Ed community. We'd love to be in touch. We're producing blogs and events all the time for free for our educator communities. And of course, you can always connect us to your administration, which brings me to the next slide. If there's any school administrators or district administrators, the first thing we'll say is it starts with you, your own emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. Teachers need secure attachment figures as much as students do. Talk to your teachers about whether they feel they have time and space for building relationships with their students, with one another, and their feelings of safety on campus. What more do they need to feel safe? Look at your school systems and structures and see how they inhibit or support secure relationships and opportunities for educators to be vulnerable and to co-regulate and bring people into your school. We'd love to partner with you and explore, and we'll definitely reach out after this with some resources and opportunities to connect. Any teacher educators in this space, I'll just kind of quickly breeze through this. Find spaces in your courses to bring educators the science skills or self-awareness of relationships, help guide educators in doing that self-work, and utilize faculty from psychology or counseling departments for support and collaboration to bridge these disciplines. That's exactly what Fuel Ed. We built a model where we use licensed professional counselor interns to provide free counseling for educators, because those LPCIs need their hours and teachers need therapy. So it's a really wonderful marriage between those two needs and opportunities that we'd be happy to share more of our experience with if anyone wants to take that on. And finally, parents and just powerful community members and leaders that all of you are, advocate at school and community levels to support relationship-driven schools and teachers in their role as relationship builders. I hope this presentation gave you more context and created some links in your web between attachment, trauma, social emotional learning, secure relationships, and how all of these things work together, and they're really not discrete. But really a web of relational interactions that create the outcomes we want. And follow and support Fuel Ed's mission. We're a nonprofit. You're welcome to donate. You're welcome to follow us on social media. And I'm just so happy to have had this opportunity to present. We truly believe the larger impact that this could create if there were relationships with consistent and caring adults at the center of every classroom, at every school. It just does have the power to create a ripple effect throughout our community, not only alleviating social problems such as delinquency, abuse, and violence, but increasing pro-social behaviors such as social responsibility, cooperation, and altruism, and leading to a happier, healthier, more whole world. So thank you so much. I'm gonna, stop talking. I used up a lot of time. I'd love if there's time for questions or for me to dive into the chat, but just appreciate you all and for being such essential advocates for this work.
So Megan, thank you. Thank you so much. Ooh, that went fast with the no screen share. We love having these discussions and showing this, right? And one of the conversations that I think we've had across for the past few years is this push for social emotional learning. And if you don't have the understanding of what trauma-informed care is, and if you don't have that understanding of attachment and relationship building and all of those things, SEL can be weaponized, right? And it can be used for compliance and not actually true social emotional learning. And so I loved giving the opportunity for our members to see how it is working in other places, right? We have just about a minute for any kind of questions that have come in. The kudos are coming in for you right now. This is a great segue into our next into the next part, where we're going through our announcements and talking about our Maricopa program, the countywide ACEs training program that we're doing here for the consortium. As this framework right here that Megan has just spoken about is the framework that we use with the schools that we are working with in Maricopa County. Knowing that there are so many schools and it takes a village, and there is not, one organization in place that can reach every single school and educator out there, to give more options for our members and our members across the state, in places to know that there's other people that are doing this work and they're doing it really well. And this is how they're doing it. And so it was, we're just really thankful to have you here. I did put their link to their blog page for their resources and pieces like that. And Megan, I'd love to continue the conversation with you and just those connections, and see how we can really kind of unite this space and
I love that.
make some change across the country. We need it now more than ever, right, in this space. So thank you so much, Megan. Please feel free to put your contact information in there if you have not.
Yes, will do. And I'll send an email to everyone after with a lot more resources and thoughts. And I just love the opportunity to connect. It is a bigger movement, and we need to unite and bridge it, as you're saying. I love the way that you said that. And the last thing that I wanted to share is that FULED had a wonderful, for state departments that are here. We had a wonderful partnership with the Texas Education Agency during COVID, where they hired us to do an open source video series about trauma-informed training to prepare educators for the effects of COVID on students and adults. And we, of course, wove our philosophy through it. It's all about attachment and secure relationships, and it's completely free and open source, and it's white labeled, so you won't see FULED's name there. But it is a wonderful resource. And then if your department, wants to explore partnerships with us, we can present at keynotes, and we can also do deeper partnerships like what we did for the Texas Project Restore. So I just would love to just stay in touch, stay connected. And thank you so much for just the very essential work that you are all doing and the way you're banding together to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to go back in straight. We have about 30 more minutes. We've had a lot going on, so we'll ask that even if you're sitting in your seat, if you just kind of stretch. It's normally Kavita's thing. When you see my green screen, sometimes my body goes up the beat just to kind of get back in our space as we kind of go through our announcements. So as I had mentioned, the Maricopa County training program that we have, right, is we have the schools, it's for community organizations, and it's for youth. We have had so much interest in the schools program, which is amazing. An amazing issue to have is that we've had to actually cap it at 30 schools for this year. So far we have 18 of those secured. We have 12 spots that are opened, but we are also talking with 30 additional schools and districts within Maricopa County to bring this training program, right, that we have into our schools. For our community organizations and our youth training and our legislature and city council training, those things are all complete. They're ready to be scheduled after September 1st. So if you are in a community organization and you would like this training brought to your organization, please contact us. Youth groups, whether the youth are within a school system or whether the youth are within community organizations, our youth program is open to all of the groups in Maricopa County. And so if you have, if you'd like to schedule those, please contact Ian. Her email is right there. The youth curriculum specifically was co-created with youth. We did youth focus groups, and I shouldn't say we, I didn't. Sandy Semino and Jessica Flowers, you all may know her. She spoke at our last meeting, co-created this curriculum with youth from Shadow Mountain High School in their focus groups. And goes through stress, the teenage brain, and resilience, because we know it's not clinically indicated to train on ACEs directly and trauma directly to our youth. And so that is the focus that takes. Another piece of this program is a resource library. So this resource library, I put the link in the chat. This is a living library where resources will constantly be added. We have different subjects, right? We have trauma, we have resilience, we have a special place for medical professionals, for youth on historical trauma. And this is continually being added to. So that resource is in your pocket now for you. The consortium, through a partnership with DHS and the Arizona Health Improvement Plan Pandemic Recovery and Resilience, is launching our statewide ACEs coalition. We just had this discussion a little earlier, right? We have this focus on education and on these specific pieces, the child welfare system, and it's really saturated with this ACEs knowledge and the trauma-informed knowledge. However, all of the other aspects of life, right, is not getting the information. And so in this coalition, we really are going to look at what does this look like to address ACEs across the state of Arizona? What are the sectors we're missing? How do we have that discussion and those educational pieces? And why is that link not working? I will double check it when I'm done speaking and put a new one in there. That coalition begins at the end of this month on Monday, August 29th at 10 a.m. If you are interested in joining that conversation, if you work with a statewide agency, if you work with an agency outside of our kind of typical schools educator piece to it, please email. We would love to have your voice there. Are there any questions on the Maricopa program or the statewide ACEs coalition? Okay. Trauma-informed organizations. So one of the things that we have spoken about quite frequently is the need for I do not know why this is automatically playing. That we have to have organizations become trauma-informed, right? And we have been looking into that, of what that looks like, what qualities we have to have as an organization, how we go about really having that conversation with organizations and supporting them as they're developing their trauma-informed practices and policies and procedures within their organizations. To do that, we need to hear from you. So if you are a leader of an organization, if you are not, and you'd like to pass this to our leader, we have a survey out right now to really just kind of get the pulse on what is going out there in our organizations. We did this across the state with schools to see, what practices were happening within schools, where they were, how they were getting that information, how they were doing those things. And now we're looking at what does that look like organizationally? And we're looking at all sectors. So it doesn't make a difference if you are a direct service provider or if you if you're law enforcement, courts, whatever that looks like to you, we want to hear your voice. We want to know, is this conversation happening? And if this conversation is happening, how is it happening? And what does that look like within your organization? Your input in your voice in this is incredibly important. So I do have the QR code up there for those who are savvy like that. For those who are not savvy, i.e. me, and need a link, the link is in the chat because I can click. I still haven't figured out this QR. I figured out how to make them finally, but I can't utilize them myself. So the link is in the chat for you. Thank you, Sandy, for answering that question in the chat. All right. On to our summit that will be happening in the first week of November. I think we talked about it last time that we have moved it from December into November because December is just, well, it's like June in the state of Arizona, where everything is just so busy that nothing actually ends up being able to happen, right, with vacations and holidays and all of those pieces. And so we moved our summit to the first week of November this year. We have a really special treat that is provided to us by Maricopa Department of Public Health, and that is to bring you all a half-day medical provider conference. So the Center for Wellbeing and Resilience has partnered with us to start pediatrician training, and their kickoff is going to be this half-day conference. So we will have flyers and all of those things coming out next week. And then the ASA Summit is going to be the pre-conference with Prevent Child Abuse Arizona on the 8th in the afternoon, and then the summit from the 9th to the 10th. So keep an eye out. Early bird registration opens August 29th. And a request for proposals is going out today or tomorrow in the follow-up email from our quarterly meeting. We're really excited to have our summit this year. The theme is reimagining wellness, right? Reimagining wellness. And then here is a list of our upcoming trainings and events. So today, from 4 to 6, we have our Understanding ACEs and the Impacts of Childhood Trauma. We have it again October 5th. And I'm really excited on September 21st, Clay from Maricopa Shift is going to come and give us a presentation on the Maricopa Shift program, Safe, Healthy Infants and Families Thrive. All of these trainings are virtual. Yes, really excited to have this presentation and connect this resource out to all of our folks. So Shift focuses on parents who, pregnant parents who have substance use disorder, and really getting them into trauma-informed care and treatment before they deliver and all throughout. And it is an incredible resource for our Maricopa County folks that is also expanding across the state. So all of the registration links for these are in the chat right now. And then our fourth quarterly meeting is November 17th. And I know I'm going kind of quickly, but we have board updates that are really important. So I'm sorry if you're getting dizzy. And we're just about getting to board updates. Before we get to board updates, though, I'd like to let everyone know that it is board election time. So if you are a paid member for the consortium, you do have that voting right. But we are looking for board members. So we have been growing, as you all know, if you've been with us for a little bit, exponentially fast. And with that, we are looking for more voices on our board and more support from different sectors, right? Specifically, what we're missing in our board right now is fund development and business development experience. on our board. We will have 5 open seats. Hopefully 3 of them are running again this year. But if you are interested in nominating someone for our board, if you are interested in nominating yourself for the board, that is the link to do it right there. And like I said, for those of us who do not understand QR codes and do not know how to use them, I will put the link to the nomination form in the chat. And all of this information is also going to go out in an email to everyone. So all of the links are in one place. So before we get to the board updates, are there any questions on all of that information that I just kind of threw at you in a short period of time? And thank you for all the support in the chat for those answering questions that have come through. Okay, it is time for board updates. I'm going to pass it over to Bob and Kavita.
Thank you, G. And wow, I just reflecting on Megan's talk. For those of you that don't know, I spent the first 16 years of my life in an 8th grade classroom in a rural Arizona mining town. And I think, fortunately, there were some of us that kind of learned all of the, relationship and secure attachment stuff just kind of by feel, by rote, and to be able to express it in succinct language and like train others in how to develop this competency, this skill, I think is just extraordinary. So super excited about that. A few updates, and Kavita, please feel free to chime in at any time. But I will say that just I'd like to acknowledge that. And can you hear the lawnmower in the background or no? Okay. So I'd like to acknowledge that the journey for our consortium over the last couple of years has been really coming at us very quickly. We've had lots going on. And, a couple of years ago, we incorporated as a nonprofit. And now through the work of Angie and many others, we continue to gain in our significance to the state, and we have this expanded role. So, huge kudos to everyone involved, including all of our committee members and our board members, and most of all to Angie and her team who, make this work look easy and make this work look seamless. So, much appreciation extended. So our board continues to meet on a monthly basis. Most recently, we've completed some strategic planning activity, and we've been able to form some committees related to our strategic planning areas. And we are, kind of moving forward in terms of developing those committees and those additional plans. We also have a summit planning committee for November summit. For those of you that are new today, our areas of focus for our strategic plan are revenue, advocacy, infrastructure, and strategic communication. So several years ago, a number of really smart, great people sat down in a small room and over the span of several months worked together to form the consortium's mission statement, which is to promote greater understanding of the impacts of toxic stress and trauma and support efforts to address and prevent them. While our consortium has a mission statement, we do not yet have a vision statement or a set of core values. Our focus for the next quarter is to develop our vision statement and core values. This will lay the foundation and inform our work on the strategic plan, especially in the areas of revenue and advocacy. What we've determined is that to know where we want to head strategically, we need to make sure that we are grounded in a collective understanding of where we are headed. So this leads to our next discussion, which is about core values. So folks, this is the time when we'd like you to get your chat typing skills ready, because we really want to pick your brains on what you think are important core values for our consortium. And when you think about core values, they're really kind of the guiding principles, the beliefs, the cultural cornerstones of our organization. The core values frame how we deal with our membership, our customers, our partnerships, and our stakeholders. So the core values really kind of provide us with the framework within which we operate as an organization. So I think that's a really important thing for us. So for example, here is a statement of core value from a small coffee company that we all may know. And you know, the thing about the core values is that they really help organizations guide their decision making. They help organizations to avoid and resolve conflict. With core values, communication is more straightforward. It helps to build trust and helps to build brand. And I think genuinely, our core values reflect who we are as an organization. So, I think that Starbucks has put together a really great list of core values for their coffee company. And I think we're at a juncture in our consortium where we would like to really develop core values to help guide the efforts of our board, help guide the efforts of our committees and our communication, and also just, you know, all of our efforts. So ladies and gentlemen, as we build our future together, what core values are important for our consortium? What do you think? What are your ideas? And again, we can save the chat. We'll be discussing as a board next week. And we really want to put together a succinct list of core values for our organization. So I'll give you a minute to type, and I'll ask our chair, Kavita, if she's got anything to add to the discussion. And I saw that she jumped on earlier. So hi, Kavita.
Hi. Yeah, you did such a great job with the board updates. I didn't want to interrupt you, so you were rocking and rolling. Hi, everyone. No, I think this is a great discussion, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. It's timely, and we really need a solid set of core values, and that will lead us to understanding our vision statement as well as we continue our growth. So seeing some comments start to come in. Jessica, thank you for starting us off with some of your thoughts, prioritizing relationships, recognizing their imperative value in promoting healing, trust, and collaboration. Love it. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Other thoughts, folks?
Great,
To
thank
keep
you.
us updated on science and the research-based information on ACE's history. I like it. Respect, diversity, and integrity. Thank you, April. Jessica asked Angie if you could click back to the Starbucks slide. There it is. Slide, thank you. Develop healthy and creative youth. Richard, reaching marginalized communities. Step 8, creating safety and everyone's voice is valued. Agree, Jessica. She says, I love that these values are active. 5, increase community and importance of ACEs. Jen, to increase awareness of ACEs in community and in professional circles, educators, and healthcare providers. Natalie, develop and promote trauma-informed evidence-based ACEs content to communities, families, and professionals. Lisa, innovation, generating ideas to meet the needs of urban, rural, and tribal communities. We'll give you another minute or so. Lots of great ideas here.
Yeah, I love that a couple times it's come up, rural, marginalized, like really looking at the entire state, right? Which I think that ACES Consortium has done an excellent job under Angie's leadership to make sure we're not Maricopa centric, but just to continue that focus, I think is important.
And Clyde said, provide relationships. Oh, it just disappeared. Hang on. Between ACEs and health. Kelly, emphasize building resiliency and recognize the capacity for individuals and communities to heal. Excellent point. Provide the community with evidence-based information relevant to resilience and ACEs. Thank you, Gail. Stephanie, consistent and strength-based messaging. Thank you. Tammy, inclusiveness, ability to listen and acknowledge values, views, and knowledge for all. Research and data-based information, culturally relevant. That's a good one. Gina, thank you. Final thoughts. So I suspect that before this is finalized, that we will put it out to membership again for your input and feedback. You know, make sure that that we're representing the voice of our membership, but then also make sure that we're thinking holistically and comprehensively about what we'd like our core values to encompass. And Angie's comment is, and is this just to Clyde or to everybody? Keep them coming.
To everyone, just because we may be wrapping up the thing, keep it coming. This is great, and I love seeing all of the the ideas out there.
And I just typed my email into the chat box, and if you know, after we ring off, if you have any additional ideas, I'll be happy to add those to our list. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Fantastic. All right. So keep them coming. Keep them coming. Just because I'm going to the next slide does not mean that the chat needs to stop. It automatically downloads afterwards, so we get to capture all of these thoughts. But before we close completely, I would like to open up the space for any new business. So is there anything going on that we all need to know about? Is there any trainings going on through your organizations? Any events that are happening? Please put that in the chat. As a reminder, this meeting has been recorded, and the replay, the recording of it will go up on our website afterwards, well, within 24 hours afterwards. And follow-up email will go out with all of our links and also the recording link and all of those pieces. So if you have anything you would like to share with us, I do like adding those to the follow-up emails too, to get it out to all of the members who were not able to be here in person with us. I'm going to give it just a minute, just in case we're typing, because we understand how that goes.
So Gail Kasmerick put in the chat that Thrive curriculum, Ted Huntington's curriculum, is being implemented for the second year in Buckeye, and the Thrive curriculum is a resilience program for teens that the National Guard Counter-Drug Task Force is helping with facilitating. And it's a wonderful curriculum. We've been also doing it with 8th graders in Casa Grande, and I think it's a great. And that's, let's see. I think Ted's website address is empoweringbreakthroughs.com.
Yeah, it is. And also it is a great opportunity. The vast majority of the substance use prevention coalitions that are within your communities all know of this program. And so within your community, SACLA AZ, which is the Substance Abuse Coalition Leaders of Arizona, their website lists all of the prevention coalitions across the state that you are able to reach out to within your community to see if they are providing this in schools within. Clyde also shared that the Black Rodeo is September 2nd and 3rd. The Arizona Drug Summit is September 7th. And the Arizona Youth Survey results will be shared during the Drug Summit. So I will send the links and information for all of those also in our follow-up email. As always, I want to thank you. You all are out there doing the work, and we are so appreciative of each and every one of you joining us every quarter and even throughout the year at our trainings. If you have any questions, as always, please reach out for anything. And we really hope that you, I was going to say, enjoy the weekend, because I'm ready for Friday, but then realize it's Thursday. So we have one more day left to go. So I hope you all enjoy your afternoon, and that if it rains in your part, that the rain is nice and pleasant and not destructive and flooding, as we have seen so often this monsoon season. So I hope everyone has a great day.